first of all, the origin of the universe itself. How does Hinduism relate to the idea of, say, the Big Bang theory? That's the first part. And then I'll talk about life itself. You see, surprisingly, if you look at the theistic Hinduism, which focuses on gods and goddesses as creators, we have the same issue that any Abrahamic religion has. How can you possibly explain this creation by God pressing a button? Where does he live and who started him off anywhere? So it doesn't work. Philosophically, it breaks down. The esoteric Hinduism, which is not personality-oriented but principle-oriented, it doesn't look for a God in the heaven, is much more comfortable with the theory of Big Bang because it says three things unfold for the creation to come into being. Now this is very close to the modern cosmology. And this comes from the Nasadiya Sukta as well as Swami Vivekananda. It said, three things unfold for creation to come into being. You say, how did they know these things thousands of years back or even 150 years back with Vivekananda? He said, space, time, and causation. When they unfold, creation comes into being. Desh, Kal, Nimit. These are the Sanskrit terms. It's a very ancient idea. Through introspection, somehow we realize these are, if you like, the dimensions through which the universe becomes manifested. So we are already aware of how the creation comes into being and how well it sits with the idea of theory of Big Bang. It has no difficulty. In fact, it goes a stage further than the Big Bang. Because Big Bang, it doesn't talk about causation. We say space, time, and causation also. So you can't say who caused the Big Bang. Causation comes with the Big Bang. It's a very esoteric idea. Now the second part of the issue, the question, Gaurav has asked is very interesting. He says, what about life itself? Now this continues to be a mystery for modern biologists. Because every time you try and create life in the laboratory, you can create the same kind of circumstances that we had in early, 3 billion years ago on Earth. Huge kind of volcanoes and very high temperatures and all these kind of, chemicals combining together. They can produce amino acid, but they can't produce life so far. Maybe I'll be proved wrong later on. But so far they can produce a building block, amino acid, but they can't produce life, DNA itself. It doesn't come out. So they're surprised. They've done all sorts of experiments to try and create life in the laboratory. It doesn't work. So we go back to this ancient, if you like, the first form of life, a single bacteria or single living thing that started to replicate and begin to kind of create this variation that we see in front of our eyes. What is the Hindu take? Hindu take is this. It insists that life is not a byproduct of material world. There is something more than matter that begins to kind of wind up matter in this complex manner as a complex molecule and produce something that we call living thing. So even though we have tremendous kind of agreement with science, here we simply say, if you're trying to explain life, living thing, in terms of material forces, you're going to fail. There is something else that is winding up this material, the elements, if you like, the chemicals, in a very complex manner, in a very unusual manner, which can only be described or defined as something which is non-material, spiritual. So we say it is actually when the spirit is trying to manifest itself in the material world, it begins to kind of, in a way, start to kind of form the chemicals in a particular structure and produce, if you like, what we call a living thing. This is a very special feature about Hinduism. It says life is not a byproduct of the material forces of matter, but it uses matter and material forces to manifest itself, but it is not something that comes out of matter. This is an interesting debate. It is a matter of time before in fact, we are launching another website called Spiritual Humanism, where we are taking this challenge to the science lobby, whether it's Richard Dawkins or the British Humanist Association. We have a challenge with them, and I continue to interact with them very robustly, that you'll see on the website.
Free e-learning course in Hinduism. To register, please visit www.hindu-academy.com.
Talks on Hinduism, sponsored by People Care, encouraging caring for the elderly in their own homes. For more information, please visit peoplecare.com.